OTAN, Outreach and Technical Assistance Network.
The next thing that I wanted to ask was, so we see the benefits that students are able to get information, but are they able to get advice? No, okay, so get information is good. Getting advice, no, okay? And then especially when it comes to personal identification. And now we're talking about this just a little bit before the session started, is what equity issues arise as generative AI is used in teaching and learning? Yes, please.
Access to it, and whether or not, because there would be the free form, and then there's the pay for level. And those that can pay for the upper levels get more access and have more available to them, whereas those that can't afford to do that don't have the access, just like with Wi-Fi and that type of stuff right now. So.
Okay, so that is definitely there, yeah. Okay, but on the other hand, we can use AI for doing representation. So to basically say, hey, my students do not look like this. Let me generate a photo that looks a little bit more like my students, or let me generate a photo of a kitchen that looks a little bit more like my students' kitchen. So, anything else that we can talk about? Okay, let's continue on. So that was good discussion. Thank you so much. Okay, so what is generative AI? Generative AI, artificial intelligence, is an technology that can create content, including text, images, audio, or video when prompted by users. So we've talked about using text, we've talked about using images, we have not talked about audio, and we have not talked about video. And so I think that's one of the benefits, or one of the advantages of TikTok over YouTube, is that there are all sorts of templates, and that is a rudimentary form of AI. How do we want to present this information? So have not worked so much with the video or the audio. Has anybody used video or audio?
Yeah.
Even using your Kindle to read to you. Anybody you're doing that? Yeah. You have your Kindle book, you're saying, God, I'm so tired tonight. You hit that voice and then the Kindle starts reading to you, and it's getting better and better. Initially it was sounding really stilted, but
I used we went to a Contigo conference, and there was a presenter that talked about using a chat bot, making a chat bot that somebody could talk to and have a conversation with. And so I actually used it with one of my students, but it was just so frustrating for them, because if they didn't say the answer right away, then it'd go on to the next question, and it just, I'm like, no, this is not gonna work for them.
thank you for reminding me about chatbots, because I tried so many times when chatbots just came out. I tried to use them or train it to prepare students for their naturalization interview. Tried, and they would ask the person's name, and do you promise to obey the law? And then they'll ask them the civics questions, and it wouldn't be the current civics questions, which have been out since 2008. Oh my God, huh? But they would use the civics questions from, I think it was 1998. So it was really kind of screwing up the students. So I couldn't, even though I was really excited about chatbot, because I think we, especially like in Silicon Valley, we have a lot of people, especially in the Indian community, especially with Indian seniors. And that was some of the information that was actually reflected on those USCIS LPR fact sheets that I was talking about. They can read English, they were educated in English, but they don't speak English.
Right.
So maybe they've got a little bit of training about listening to American English from their grandchildren, but they need more practice in speaking. And so those are the tools that I really try to gravitate and have been disappointed in, but that's in the past. What can we look forward to the future? So if anybody can recommend some good chatbots, we would really appreciate it. So let's continue on. Generative AI systems create responses using algorithms that are trained often in open source information, such as text and images from the internet. So we'll get some examples of that. However, generative AI systems are not cognitive and lack human judgment. So if I ask something related to the naturalization interview or the naturalization form, they'll give me the topics, but they won't give me the questions, or they'll give me questions in such an obtuse way that it almost bears no relationship. So again, it's gonna really take a lot of massaging. And then this is the key thing, using prompts or questions to descriptions, entered by a user to generate and refine the results. These systems can quickly write a speech in a particular tone, summarize a complex research, or access legal documents. Again, they can access the legal documents, but they cannot give you legal information. And again, a lot of those legal documents that they're talking about, particularly things from USCIS, those have special security on it, and the AI, the ChatGPT or apps cannot access PDFs that have special encoding in them. And now a lot of our government, now I've got a lot of, and they do it to protect personal information, okay? They're not saying, hey, we need to lock down these questions. They say they're doing it to lock down people's personal information, okay? It's not, so it's not the premium on the questions, the government questions. Government questions are pretty much open, but they're locking down those PDFs because of the personal information. So again, we're gonna have to be really, really careful of that. And if you see something that says, oh, this is direct questions from the N-400 application for naturalization, usually it's really, really old versions of the N-400 application of naturalizations, particularly for the N-400. They're going to be picking up things, versions of the N-400 before 2014. That's in 2014 and again in 2016, that's when they added all those security questions, those questions that are so difficult in part 12. That's the stuff that people really need practice on, okay? That 2014, the N-400 went from 10 pages to 20 pages, and 21 pages and back down to 20 pages. So they're gonna be looking at, if they're presenting that stuff, they're gonna be looking at potentially outdated or obsolete information. So we really, really have to take a look at that, be very, very careful. But there's ways around that, so we will get there. Okay. So one of my favorite ways to talk about a prompt or AI framework is TRACE: task, request, action, context, and example. So we have to define the specific task, and that was one of the things I was getting really stuck at. When I think about a task, I think about a verb. And do I write? The guy yesterday, Joe, kept on saying the word craft, and when I think craft, hey, I'm thinking knitting is like, let's go to where's the closest yarn store? That's what I'm thinking, okay? But so do I want to use make? Do I want to use write? Do I want to use the word list, okay? Request, we want to describe what we're doing. And so you wanted to make a distinction about, am I asking for the questions that are on the form, or I'm going to ask, do I want to know the questions that are going to be asked in the interview? There's two different versions. And for example, I'll give you an example. Were you ever a member of the military in your country? Okay, so that's written in simple past. But a lot of people, when they're asking these questions, they're not going to be asking it in simple past like the form does. They're going to be asking it in, they're going to be using present perfect. Have you ever been? Okay, so just that really simple example is going to be something to be aware about. You're going to talk about the action. So you're going to say, do I want to list this? Do I want to write this? And initially when I was trying to do my prompts, I was saying, hey, give me all the questions and, on the N-400. It didn't work, so what I started to do is starting to, focus it and focus it and focus it. For example, I would take a specific section of the N-400. I would say, hey, I want questions about, from the job section, and I would give it the special section. That yielded some good results, but again, it was not really close to the form. I started saying, hey, I only want 3 or 5 questions, and 5 questions would give me a good sample of if this is a good prompt, and if I'm giving good information. So that was things that I was looking for. If you start limiting and start getting more specific, the more information that I could give them, the better I got the responses. The context, I would have to say, hey, am I looking at a form, or am I looking at an interview? To test some of my information, I would say, hey, this is an interview going for a job. This is a medical form. These are questions on medical forms. This is our medical history form. This is the questions at the beginning of your annual checkup. This is the questions that are asked during the annual checkup for a woman who's 65, okay? So getting things more specific and trying to narrow it is basically AI device was basically starting to pick up, oh, I see where she's going with this information. So I would run through these things and then go to the AI app. And basically we're starting to do comparisons and everything like that. And again, I think it's really important to give not only the AI that context, but you wouldn't just simply hand a form to your students. You're gonna build up, you're gonna create so much context for your student that coming into this is simply, this is gonna be something new to learn, not something new to struggle with, so. And then I could give an example, and I would basically use, hey, look at form, job form for a landscaper, look at a job for the medical history form for a woman who's over 65, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so this is again something that I learned from Jose. Some of our students are in a situation where they're coming to class and they're tired, but you think, why are my students energized and happy to be in class? I'm happy to be in class. They're thinking about their kids, okay? You know, I remember when my dad used to go to school, it's like, why can't dad be home with us, okay? Well, he has to go to school. He's doing it for the family. So I wrote a history prompt yesterday, just really simple, and then I actually modified it. Write a children's story about a young girl who resents her mom going to school to prepare for her naturalization interview. And then I added more and more and more to create more context for that. And I wanted to do this because our students are really mindful. They're adults, they have adult responsibilities. And coming to school, especially at night, really represents a sacrifice for their part. So this is the prompt that I put out. And then I wanted to basically show you 3 different comparisons of the opening of the opening line. So can you read the ChatGPT one? This is the opening line, right?
Once upon a time, in a cozy little house nestled in a bustling city, there lived a young girl named Lily and her mother Maria. Lily loved her mother dearly, but lately something had been bothering her. You see, Maria had decided to go to school at night to prepare for her naturalization interview. She wanted to become a citizen of the country they lived in.
What comments do you have for that? What's your initial response?
First thing is a story.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a story. It's put together in a possible scenario situation.
Mm-hmm.
It has a bit of fictitiousness about it by saying once upon a time. There's a conflict there, potential conflict between Maria and her mother about Maria's decision to go to school, become a naturalized citizen.
And then just think about your own, what city are you from, or what?
Fremont.
Fremont, okay. Are there cozy little houses in Fremont?
Yeah, there are. No, I don't think so.
Living in cozy little houses, or are they living in apartments, are they
Right.
sharing houses with
Right.
other families and stuff like that?
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, so there's a little conflict in that first sentence that I didn't catch.
Mhm.
Cozy little house in a bustling city doesn't work.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so you would sit there and you think about, you see this, you think, hey, I can improve on that, okay? This
Right.
does not look like Milpitas, okay?
no,
But can I make it look like Fremont Milpitas? Yeah, I can take it from there. Okay, let's see, Francisco, can you read?
Yeah, and then one other, like on the ChatGPT,
Yeah,
something along those lines, and I noticed that the names are always Maria. They're like, it's so stereotypical.
Lulu.
So, like, if I wanna do that, like, for example, I'm getting a lot of students who, come from like Syria, and things like, they're not like, it's not gonna.
It's not gonna mesh, yeah.
Exactly, so that's one thing yesterday, that same activity, we noticed that when we would type something like, I did like a low income or, something I put low income, and it gave me.
yeah, and there's another bias in there because why would it bother Maria
Mhm.
to go to school for her naturalization process? Why would it bother her? Because you see, let's see, Lily loved her mother dearly, but, which gives you the indication that Maria's mother's not a citizen.
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So for Claude, it says 8-year-old Jenny sat at the kitchen table, swinging her legs as she finished her math homework. She looked over at her mom, Nina, who had her head bent over a thick stack of flashcards.
Okay, and we all know those flashcards, okay? But, what kind of a response do you have to this? Totally different?
Very different than the first one. This one's more like direct to the point. It's not giving you so much of the setting, I could say.
Mhm.
It's in the kitchen table. It seems that they're both studying. Mom seems frustrated. Jenny is maybe impatient or maybe wants help with math homework. So yeah, it's very different what ChatGPT, and again, both of these were created with a artificial intelligence. It just takes the information in a different way.
I would think a lot of times now, people, instead of using their flashcards, a lot of times, you see our students scrolling
Yeah.
on YouTube on those questions, okay? The same red flashcards. And then, can you read the Gemini prompt?
Sure. Lila stared at her bowl of cereal, the milk swirling unappetizingly. Her mom, hunched over a thick book, mumbled to herself, scribbling furiously. Every night this happened. Stacks of papers replaced Lila's bedtime stories, and furrowed brows replaced warm goodnight kisses. There's a lot of description going on. It's very dramatic. It's unappetizing, curiously. Furrowed brows, so there's.
And you know, what, how much real, meal prep goes into cereal, you know? It's like, that's like last, but it's, you know, it's interesting that that the scene is set for studying and different, stacks of paper replace bedtime stories. It's a really interesting image. Okay,
What was the prompt again?
the prompt was write a story about a young girl who resents her mother because the mom is going to school. And I was trying to write the story. Oh, and let me continue. After many months, the girl goes with her mom to her naturalization interview. She sees how her mother overcomes her nervousness, passes her naturalization interview, and is proud to stand with her mother, at her oath of naturalization ceremony. Oh, wow, I see a couple of grammar errors. Anyway, I wanna show the closing, and, so in most of the stories, the girl goes with her mom to the interview. The mother, she sees how her mother basically takes a couple deep breaths, or is twisting a handkerchief or something like that, but is able to get through. And now this is the last, the last part. Can you read the ChatGPT on the top?
From that day on, Lily knew that no matter where life took them, she and her mother would always be together, facing every challenge with courage and love. As they walked out of the ceremony hand in hand, she knew that their bond was stronger than ever before.
Yeah. So, good ending to that, especially that you know that there's a continuation. This is not the last part. Okay, how about the top one?
As Nina waved her little American flag, Jenny went over to give her new citizen mom another big hug. She was so glad all that hard work and studying had paid off. Now they would have more time, cozy nights at home together.
You know, bringing it back together with being with the family. And my mother was, with her mother, okay, so my mother was born in 1935. Her mother naturalized probably in 1942 during World War I, and they were German Americans, okay? And so in Illinois, and my mother was beaten up regularly for speaking German. So, but she really remembers going to that interview and participating in it, and she was so proud she was of her mother. Can you read the Gemini prompt, please?
Sure. The resentment melted away, replaced by a deep sense of pride. Her mom, with her dedication and resilience, had not only become a citizen, but also shown Lila the power of perseverance and the true meaning of home. The chipped blue door, once a symbol of frustration, now stood as a symbol of their shared journey. A reminder that sometimes the most beautiful changes come with a bit of struggle and a lot of love.
Are you responsible for this?
I'm a little verklempt.
So I do have a connection in there that you can click the more and read.
Yeah.
You can read the entire stories, I have this in the notes, but it's basically, one of the things that the store was, that appears earlier in the story, they have to pass through that door all the time, and so it talks about going on to a new thing, and how she used to be really ashamed of that door, now it's a real symbol of passing on to a new thing, but I thought that was really interesting how they use symbols in that. So I know I have gone probably way too much on this, but I think it's really important to basically create some material. So I'm gonna be working a little bit more because it's kind of like, I have so many stories, but I need to make something better for my students because sometimes they lose heart and forget why they're in class. And especially when so much is pulling away from them. And if they know that it's only gonna be a short time, that they'll be able to continue on. Okay, I wanted to share a resource from OTAN and OTAN.us, and we have our resources, and this is a really great article about streamlined planning with AI crafting custom lessons. Was anybody able to see, participate in some of Susan Coulter's workshops this weekend? Anybody go to any? She constantly is doing web training and everything like that, and she's very good at creating lesson plans and has used created lesson plans optimally. She always incorporates some aspect of technology in there. So please go ahead and take a look at this one. The permanent link is, it's details 201, okay, so this is the 201st story about this, but this is a much longer, article filled with a lot of connections, and she connects it to all these different web-based class activities, so she has web-based class activities created with AI for adult, basic education, career and technical education, ESL and citizenship, high school, GED, holidays, older adults, and all activities. Let's see, for Francisco, just walk back in the door. Francisco, do you have anything to say about Susan Coulter's, this article by Susan Coulter?
It was,
She just posted it to OTAN, or were you in one of her sessions yesterday?
I wasn't, no.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, please take a look at some of these lesson plans, that's the key thing that I wanted to share from this. So, I'm getting back to, I wanna move on to some of the prompts that I have written. And particularly the prompts, because I'm in a ESL or EL Civics class, very, very oriented towards life skills. So, some of the students said, hey, this class, English class is so different than the English class we had in our own home countries, which was grammar, or vocab, okay? And here we are, we're talking about changing tires or filling out forms or whatever the case may be. So here's one of the prompts that I wrote. Questions, comment, I wanted them to list questions common to school registration forms, employment application, medical history forms, and USCIS application forms. And then going from so I'm making a decision here between forms and then questions, making a decision between that and then questions common to interviews. So school registration interviews, employment interviews, in-office medical exams, USCIS interviews. And it was really interesting to see how the different topics came up and the different grammar points that came up. So I'm going to basically step out of this slide and hopefully I can go to my chat GPT account, share screen. I'm going to go to, I think this one here. And I'm going here to here, naturalization review. So what I had done was I had used different prompts to talking about, let's see, where's the different prompt? Prepare for a naturalization interview, 100 questions. I was not getting, I kept on saying, hey, what are these questions? I'm getting explanations about things that people are being explained, that they're explaining. So eventually what I started doing is saying, hey, I wanna limit the questions that I'm asking. 5 US N-400 part 12 questions, CEFR 1. So I'm saying, hey, give me something in basic English with what they're gonna ask, okay? I wanted to add that because I wanted to get something low level, but I would say that somebody from ESL, maybe the second semester of ESL 2 or ESL 3 would be okay with that. What are you seeing with that? Do you think that's for ESL 1? No, that's, the grammar is way too much. So how do you compensate for levels when you're asking questions?
So what we use is, well, after they take their CASA score, their CASA's test, we look at their level, their score, and then on the CASA site, there's a document that correlates their CASA's reading score to grade level. So then when I use ChatGPT, I put in, for example, show me examples of this at grade level 5, for example. And then it will populate the question thinking it's for a 5th grade student, when in reality it's for my ESL student. Because if I put for ESL, it's still gonna be high. So I always use that grade level conversion to make, for example, on mine, I'd say create a worksheet with 15 fill in the blanks on past tense verbs for grade 4, which would be my low intermediate class. So then it would populate it and it would create it with vocabulary that when my students see it, they're like, oh yeah, this is good. There might be 1 or 2 words that might be a little bit too high for them, but it's better than if I just create it for an ESL student, because then it's gonna be like, okay, like, give me the whole.
I really appreciate that. The other thing is I was looking for, I was trying to put in the NRS levels, and yeah, that wasn't working.
Oh,
National,
yeah.
yeah. So, and that's really important because, plus I just updated those levels. So, that's gonna be really important, and I'm sure as ChatGPT gets more advanced, we're gonna be able to find that we'll be able to find this information. What I'm trying to do is go in, as I'm scrolling down, and maybe I have scrolled too far. Oh, 7 days ago. When I first started doing this and saying, give me information what's on the naturalization interview, they were giving things, way off. Way far afield from what's actually on the form. And stuff that wasn't even, was not even on the earlier forms, okay? So there was a lot of, testing or training that was going through. And eventually, I think it's gonna take a little bit too long to go back. Eventually, what I had to do is basically, list 5 questions that are common to job interview and naturalization form, CEFR1. So I started comparing the different forms, and I was only asking 5 questions at a time, and I really did, my results started getting a lot better from there. Okay, I'm gonna step back into my form. I think, I'm gonna have to, it's obvious that I'm gonna need to start, organizing my problems a little bit better. Okay, I'm stepping back into my presentation right now. I wanted to go from there, so you're basically using it to create content for your classroom. I'm doing it because I want my students to go from their form to interview practice. And especially I want to do different versions of the interviews to share for the students. Now I'm going over to the forms and interviews. Yeah, forms and interviews, okay. Write a lesson plan for a B2 class in which the students complete an employment application, then role play a job interview based on employment application. It was a really bare bones 1 hour lesson plan. But the thing is that it was also, it had a warm up, it had everything that I wanted, but it was just okay, and I feel like I could take that, because a lot of times I'm so tired of thinking, how do I do lesson plans again? And then it's like, oh, okay, if I can use this as a beginning, and then go back and maybe help it get back into a white, do you say WIPIA form?
Yeah.
And then move on from there. I can add all the resources and put in all the links that I want to. It's gonna save me a lot of time.
Is B2 a universal term?
B2 was based on the CEFR, so again,
Oh,
that's intermediate, that's
okay.
intermediate,
I don't teach.
that would be
ESL,
probably
so-
ESL4, okay? So the next thing that I wrote was write 4 sets of 10 USCIS N-400 applications for naturalization. Employment and education questions. So if you're on the N-400, there's a certain section about employment and education, and that are very similar to what you're gonna ask in a job application. And they're also gonna ask you questions about, have you had any arrests, okay? Do they ask you questions about job skills? No, but it's a way for students to move from what they've learned previously in an ESL class about jobs, and now they're moving on to this other thing, so they're able to take this information with them. And then finally I asked, hey, write this lesson plan, incorporate these 4 sets of lessons, and then take the role of USCIS officer to interview another student. So you're basically adding more and more stuff. Okay, finally, and I do have examples of that. You can dig into this, and I have them all in the info, the notes for the slide. So if you go into those, I have all the material there. I think one of the most important things about AI is that we can use it to basically promote equity and civic education. So for instance, this is a really fascinating article that I cannot recommend for enough. It's from restoftheworld.org, and it's 2023 AI, how AI reduces the world to stereotypes. And so this was really interesting to see these different women with the American flag. I thought that was really interesting, especially a couple of years ago, you would see the image of women. As I'm thinking about the woman wearing the hijab of the American flag, and some people said, hey, you don't wear the flag that way, that's not what the hijab is for, et cetera, et cetera. So we're saying, hey, I think this is more inclusive, and they're saying, hey, that's actually offensive. So it's like, basically, we're saying, hey, we're trying to be more inclusive. If it's not, we need to have a discussion about that. So I really can recommend this article. And again, the link is in the slide. But so what I tried to do was try to use them as a designer to basically imagine moving from students. And you can see when you talk about students, everybody's young and everybody's healthy. Everybody looks really happy. I don't remember college that way at all. I don't know, do you guys remember college that way? I don't remember. All right, so we have the citizenship prep students, and so again, they do not look like my students at all. But again, they seem a little to be a little bit older. We're not clear who the teacher is. Is it the woman on the front or is it the gentleman in the back? The only way we know that this is a citizenship prep class is you see the big flag, but you can have a big flag anywhere. So you're gonna have to add more information. I would definitely work on this slide. And then we have an image of the new American citizens. And you take a look at this document down here, it basically says nothing. It's just chicken scratch type of stuff. So you would have to go in and clean that up. American certificates or citizenship certificates look nothing like that. Are those American flags, or are they napkins that look like American flags? So you have a lot of things that you can basically work on. But again, this was just really quick prompts that I basically put in. And then finally, this was something we talked about, the Statue of Liberty, which I went to see for my very first time last June. It was so cool, right? Oh my God. I thought it was gonna be a religious experience. It was an experience of being cold and damp and whatnot. So, but I remember one time being contacted in 2007 about a documentary, and they wanted to come and film my class, a citizenship class, and I go, my students don't look like your audience. My students are all Asian. They go, that's exactly what we want, because we don't have Asian people in the classroom. This is what we want, okay? So that's always stuck with me. So I tried to reimagine, just put an Asian Statue of Liberty. I got this with lotus flower. We got a lotus flower out here. I really love how you have the embroidery on the Statue of Liberty, the garment, and it's the right color. It's nice. Does she look Asian? Maybe a little bit. Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. Let's drill down on what Asian, what kind of Asian. So in Milpitas, we have predominantly Vietnamese students. So I wanted to imagine them as a Vietnamese woman. That looks very good, and with the Ao Yai, so that looks great. This, one of my friends took a look at it and they're like, what is that? We don't know. It's a lotus and it's a dragon coming out of the lotus. So they go, hey, we don't know what's going on with that. And then we have a Palestinian hijab. Again, they all have the right blue-green color, but there's little details like what's going on here with is that the flag of Turkey? What's going on with that? The background, but basically trying to get our students to see themselves in civics content. is the most important thing that we can do and that we can do as teachers. So basically trying to make connections back and forth. And, let's see, that's it. So if we have, do we have any further questions or any further comments?